And we welcome you into the Hanny Cast for Monday, March the 10th. I'm Charles Hannigrove, along with former LSU coach Dan Cannaveri and former Tiger pitcher Doug Thompson. Glad to have you with us, guys. LSU takes 3 over the weekend against North Alabama, and one game remains between now and conference play. So let's start there, Dan, with what you've seen so far. How the Tigers, just an overall kind of overview of how you think this team is with one game left before conference play starts.
I'll tell you what I think. Doug and I talked about this last week, but the bottom line is it's pitching and defense is going to carry this team and stay consistent, I think, most of the year. I think the pitching is starting to line up. Jay's put a lot of guys out there. I think he's starting to figure out what he's got to do in the first SEC weekend, this weekend coming up against Missouri. But I think we found that Curiel is going to be a nice player. I think he's locked into the leadoff spot. I think, Jared Jones is Jared Jones. We know what we're going to get from him. Dickinson has really stepped up to become a guy that's going to really be a factor, I think, through the SEC weekend. Josh Pearson is a clutch hitter. Milam is definitely the shortstop. And I think Hernandez has moved in to be the catcher. And Tanner Reeves and Braswell fighting it out, lefty-righty down there at third base. And so I think there's a lot of options. Jake Brown's playing a lot. One of the biggest surprises for me personally is Chris Stanfield is starting to get on base a lot and play a real good center field. So I think Jay's got a feel for where he's at right now to start the season.
Doug, same question for you. Biggest takeaways from the pre-conference schedule?
Yeah. I agree with what most of what Cano said, and just to elaborate on like how I'll take that question a little further, kind of how I feel about where they are going into next weekend against Missouri. And I was hopeful this weekend we would see exactly what we saw, which was over 40 strikeouts, less than 10 walks, and as a team that they combined to do that, which kind of brings them back to where they were to begin the season. That little 6 or 7 games kind of before this weekend, they had close to over 40 walks and which was completely uncharacteristic. Started off the year with over 50 walks and less than 10 strikeouts. So I think that's key. Keno's right. It's going to be pitching and defense that wins for this team. But any team that really wants to be a contender, has to be solid in those two aspects of the game. And then, of course, timely hitting is kind of the third lever there. And I mean, you could still doubt them if you want, and it's still early, but they're hitting 330 as a team through the first 17 games of the year. And they've scored, they got another 30 plus hits this weekend. They're scoring runs. So it might be different than teams in the past. They might not hit as many balls out of the ballpark, but they have more speed than teams in the past. And they're much more aggressive on the base pass. And I think there's a little bit more depth. There's obviously more depth in the pitching staff. But I think there's actually a little more depth in terms of position players as well.
Charlie, can I add something here with Doug? Because
Sure.
Doug, what you're talking about, I spent the weekend up in Oxford with my Six Rings baseball team, spent some time with Mike Bianco, great coach and, of course, great friend, and, of course, your coach, Doug, and we love Mike. But spent some time, it was great to talk baseball. But we were talking about, getting into the SEC and trying to figure out hitting. When you're playing North Alabama and you're playing these other teams, it's hard to tell the hitting because all fall they're hitting against guys throwing 94, 95 on their own staff. Mike's got the same thing. Then they get into the 88 to 89 guys throwing sliders, and so they're just a hair off in their timing. So I think when we get into SEC play, we're really going to see what the hitting looks like, because I think they're more geared to hitting that type of pitching than they are hitting North Alabama or some of the other schools that they're playing. Mike played Jacksonville State this weekend. So it's not that the pitching's bad. It's just a different level of pitching. And I think their bats are geared up for that 92 to 95 mile an hour hard slider type pitching.
Well, I mean, if you're right, then you can pack your bags now, because if they improve on hitting 330 as a team in the SEC, obviously that would be a good thing. But no, I think overall, Charlie, after 17 games, I see a lot of depth, a lot of options, not only on the pitching staff, but I see a lot of guys that I think can get it done offensively too.
Let me kind of add on what you guys are saying. For me, the positives, everything you guys talked about, the fact they're hitting throughout the lineup, the defense looks outstanding. I like some of the lefty-righty combinations that they've got, both in the outfield and maybe at third. that I think are good. The biggest surprise to me, positive surprise, has been Kason Evans. I did not expect that he would be as effective as he's been. The velocity, he's not a 6'8" guy like Shores or like Skeens was, but he can throw it as hard as anybody on the team, and he's got excellent movement. He's got the wipeout breaking ball. So to me right now, guys, if they take a 1-run lead to the ninth in the opening game of an SEC series, he's getting the ball for me right now. And then my concerns would be the defense behind the plate. I think we'll probably spend a little bit of time talking about that. And I'm continuing to monitor Chase Shores. I think it's been good so far. I'd like to see him miss a few more bats. The walk totals have gotten up there a little bit. Teams are hitting 286 against him. That's a little bit of a high number for non-conference. So that's kind of my overall thoughts, through 17 games.
Yeah, well, talking about Shores, I agree with you. 22 hits in 20 innings in non-conference play. It's probably a couple too many, but he's got 22 strikeouts and only 7 walks. And with the type of stuff that he has, I think that's the key. He's just got to throw it over the plate. And yeah, they've hit him around a little bit. But remember, this is his 7th college start, 8th, 10th college appearance of all time. Like he's really just getting started. He's just learning how to pitch here at LSU. And I think I was expecting Shores to actually kind of start out of the gate a little bit slower, just because it's all new. I mean, this is a totally new year for him. He just coming off the injury, all those things kind of combined. But again, I mean, I think he's as formidable a third starter as you'll find. A guy that's 6'8", 6'9", and can throw it up there close to 100 miles an hour. I'll take him. I'll take him.
I'll take that
That's
any
the
day.
third
As a
option.
pitching
Yeah.
coach, you'd like to have that guy on Sunday. And of course, we used to say Sunday's a fun day because it's run day. I like Chase Shores on a Sunday. But Doug, you were fortunate enough when you pitched, you didn't come off any arm surgeries. And unfortunately, for me, we had a few guys come off arm surgeries. Guys had Tommy John and other surgeries. Not a lot, thank God. But it takes a while for them to get that feel back because you got to go through the rehab, you go through the throwing and everything, but there's nothing like getting out in the mound, competing, and then you get to a point where mentally and physically you get past the point of holding back a little bit or not letting it rip. And I think the more Shores pitches, the better he's going to get, the more he lets it rip. Charlie and Doug, you know this more than anybody, the more movement he's going to have when he loosens up and the ball comes off his hands. He gets his timing of his motion down. I think the best is yet to come for Shores, but sitting in that third spot on a Sunday, I don't think anyone in the SEC wouldn't want to have Chase Shores on a Sunday.
I agree with that.
Yep, and I think in come May and June, Shores is going to be a big factor for this team as they head towards the postseason. Let's thank our sponsors, Marucci Sports, the Hitter's House at 5801 Segan Lane, and on Airline Drive in Metairie. 24/7 access to the members-only cages, plus a 15% discount at the retail store. Bullpen and cage reservation opportunities are available. And, of course, the world-famous bats. You've got training bats, T-ball bats, baseball, softball, helmets, bat accessory, glove care, the wood bats, the custom pro bats, the souvenir bats, BB-Core, USSSA, and the fast pitch softball bats, all available. Company founded by current and former big leaguers. Go to MarucciSports.com, and also by Dependable Storage with 8 locations across Louisiana and 1 in Gulfport, Mississippi. New locations in Slidell and Youngsville. They'll match any competitor's pricing, convenient online rentals and payments, and free use of the moving truck for new rental move-ins. Clean, secure, and conveniently located facilities. Check out the website at DependableStorage.com. Let's talk a little bit about what we saw this weekend. I want to talk about Cade Anderson. Doug, I'll start with you. You watched his starts progress from the beginning of the season. It seemed like early on he was kind of hitting the wall right around that 80 pitch mark or so. He got it up to 92 pitches this weekend, and I didn't see really a whole lot of drop off. Seems like he's building up that pitch count and continuing to move forward to where they can kind of turn him loose this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main one, Cade Anderson. I mean, Ken will tell you, the more that Friday night guy can eat up, the better a chance you have to win the rest of the weekend. So his pitch count, getting that up there makes a lot of sense to me. And he's been, I mean, better than good. 14 hits in 21 innings, and a 6-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. I mean, that's getting it done non-conference or conference. 37 strikeouts and 6 walks. So he's proven to be the Friday night ace. And I would love to see that pitch count get to where he can get to 100 pitches pretty comfortably.
Well, Doug, you hit it right on the head there. As you know, Friday night, if you can get your starter to get you into the 6th or 7th inning and save your bullpen and keep the game close going against the other guy's ace, let your offense take over. That's what you need to win the weekend, because it's not just he wins that game, but he saves your bullpen and saves the pitching, so you have it down the line. But looking at the box score from Friday night, I'll take any left-handed pitcher on a Friday night that goes in against any competition, throws 92 pitches, and somehow comes up with no walks, 11 strikeouts, and only 4 hits and 1 earned run. I will take that any day of the week against any competition.
Doug, what's he facing this weekend? You know about this from your own personal experience. That first time you take the ball on a Friday night in an SEC series, what's going to be going through his head Friday?
I mean, you got to control the emotion, right? I mean, this is what you've been working for. This is what everybody's looking for. I mean, this is the real season. So I think for Cade Anderson, it's just a matter of staying right where he is, not trying to do too much more. Don't let the moment, be bigger than what it really is. But if he pounds the strike zone, I feel good about him against whoever we play. But the only question is, and Ken will again verify that, the pitch count thing, it can be tricky with a guy that strikes out a bunch of people, right? So I don't know that we'll ever really see Cade Anderson get past 6 or 7, simply because he's usually a double-digit strikeouts at that point. And it's not very often that somebody strikes out 1, 2, 3, right? That usually is a 5 or 6 pitch battle. So that may be the only thing with Anderson. He strikes a lot of guys out, and that might prevent him from getting deeper into games.
Yeah, I think that's a real factor there, Doug. But again, I think one of the advantages this weekend that Cade Anderson has for his first SEC start is we're at home.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, and that's a big deal for a young guy going out there the first time, having the home crowd behind you, for him, having his family who's from Louisiana right here on the North Shore there with him, with his teammates. Let's face it, Doug, a kid growing up in Madisonville, Louisiana, this is a dream come true to open up the SEC weekend at home at Alex Box in front of 10, 12,000 people. It doesn't get any better than that. It's a dream come true for him. And I'm excited for him and his family. And I'm excited for Jay Johnson and the team to get off the ground here in front of a great home crowd. It looks like the weather's going to be good on Friday night as well.
He's got a lot of things going for him, but Missouri's sitting down there at 8-8 on the year. They've struggled more than any other SEC school early on. So he's also got that going for him. I guess if you were to pick your opening weekend series, this would be the one that you want to start with.
But Doug, you know this, the adrenaline, the umpire, the inevitable 2 is sitting out there. The bottom line is Missouri, this is the biggest game of the year for them up to today when they play on Friday night. So they're going to play at a high level. I think Cade's got to come out and be ready to match that adrenaline. And if he gets through the first couple of innings in pretty good shape, I think we'll see that taper off on their side and watch the Tigers escalate through the rest of the game.
We're brought to you by Bayou Apparel, helping local businesses communicate their message since 2009 as one of only a few local LSU official licensees. Bayou Apparel offers the highest quality products. They'll showcase your brand, whether you've got an established brand or a new one. Doug knows all about the folks over at Bayou Apparel. Design experts that can help you create eye-catching designs that fit your company's message. They do logos, event T-shirts, and promotional items for your business. So call 225-928-9090 or go to the website at bayouapparel.com. If you guys like the 11 strikeouts from Cade Anderson on Friday, you must have really liked the 15 from Anthony Ianson on Saturday. That's more than any game, any pitcher had in a game all season for LSU last year. Dan, I'll start with you. We've seen him sort of work off the slider. It seems like to me, you guys can correct me, but it seems like the slider is his dominant pitch. It's a swing and miss pitch. The fastball is almost a secondary pitch for him. Everything works off the slider. And when it's biting like it was the other night, Ianson's strikeout to walk ratio has been eye-popping for this season so far.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think it's a great fit for him to be in the middle of the weekend after a hard-throwing lefty. Then you got a hard-throwing righty behind you that play off the fastball. But the thing about Ianson, and Doug, you know this is big because you were primarily a breaking ball guy that played off your breaking ball, although you threw hard, Doug.
Thanks,
Hard.
Cannaveri. Thanks for throwing that in there.
And there was a lot of movement on there. And you had a swing and miss fastball, but you had a great breaking ball. And this kid's got a great one. But the key is he can throw two kinds of breaking ball. He can throw the one over the plate, then he can throw the wipeout breaking ball. And that to me keeps the hitters off balance and really is an advantage. But I'm going to look at the whole performance, Charlie. He went two runs, 2 hits in 7 innings with 2 walks and 15 strikeouts. And then you bring in Zach Cowan, who gives you 1 walk and 5 strikeouts. I'll take 3 walks and 20 strikeouts any weekend, any day, any opponent, and all the time.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least. But I think the thing I like about Ianson the most so far, this outing, he gave up the inevitable 2 against, I believe it was Nebraska last week, right? He gave up 3 in the first.
Yeah, and it was 5. It was 5 overall through the first 3 before he really settled in. Both times, Doug. This time it only took him in the second inning. Last week against Nebraska, I thought he really battled after those first 3 innings and got LSU deeper into the game. So yeah, he's been a little shaky to start, but he's righted himself very quickly.
And that's a skill set. That's definitely a skill set for a pitcher. Not everybody can go out there and give it up early and stay locked in and bounce back to finish strong. Lots of guys assume that their outing is numbered and they're about to be pulled out of the game and kind of start to shut it down. But to me, if I'm going to have a guy out there starting on the weekend, I got to know that he's going to fight, even in the first inning when it's bad. And Ianson has showed now twice consecutive. Actually, this is kind of the third. I think this would be the third time that he's actually had to battle through a little bit of adversity early on, but still been in there in the 6th inning with 15 strikeouts. So he's proving himself to me and to the rest of the Tiger faithful more and more with each start.
And Charlie,
go ahead.
I want to talk about it. Doug touched on it, but Doug, don't you think that really the key right now is Nate Yeskie, Jay Johnson are going to work with Ianson on coming out and being ready for that first inning more than he has been maybe in the past. And you mentioned it, but I want to bring this out, Charlie. The inevitable 2, Skip Bertman's mantra, right, for all pitchers. Doug, kind of explain the inevitable 2. I'll start it and you finish it. The inevitable 2 means if you're not careful, you got to understand that the first inning is one of the most important innings because of 4 factors for the visiting team, especially if you're the home team pitcher. One is they got a lot of adrenaline. They're highly adrenalized with those aluminum bats and they're ready to go. Number 2, they still don't have their release point coming out of the bullpen. And so even though they've warmed up in the bullpen, they got to find it on the mound. Doug, you take the next 2.
Yeah, I mean, the umpire's not quite sure yet of his strike zone or the pitcher's strike, what the pitcher has. And then most importantly, the hitters are, as locked in and focused as they'll be the rest of the game. So all of those things kind of attribute to the first inning. Of course, the 5th through the 7th innings are also tough for the starter just because they start to get tired, et cetera. But if you look at the opponent's runs this year, in the first inning, they scored 10, which is the most in any other inning other than the 7th inning. So, and then, LSU has scored 26 offensively, which is the most other than the 4th inning. So the first inning is for sure the toughest for that starter to get through. And yes, maybe there could be some adjustments made to Ianson's warm-up routine that may have him a little more locked in when the game starts.
Also, I want to say also you may end up pitching a little bit more, and Doug, in our terminology, a little more pattern 2, pattern 3 baseball early in the game to offset that emotion. Plus, one other thing, Charlie, with the inevitable 2 is the hitters, for the only time guaranteed, are in order in the batting order when they start the game. So they've got their best people lined up the way they want them to start the game. So as the game goes on, sometimes you can break that up the way it falls, but that's another factor in that inevitable 2.
With both of these guys that pitched in the game on Saturday, Dan, we spent a lot of time talking about Thatcher Hurd's adjustment when he came from UCLA into conference baseball. Both of these guys are going to have to make an adjustment. For Ianson, who was pitching out at San Diego, for Cowan, who was starting on Friday nights at Wofford, you've said it a million times. It's the SEC is a little bit different. So both of these guys get into conference play this weekend. What are they looking at?
Well, Doug, you know this better than anybody. I think the biggest difference in conference play is that 1 through 9 can all hit. So the guy that you're facing in non-conference that's batting third is batting 8th or 9th in an SEC lineup. And that stress on the pitcher, every pitch matters. You can't make a mistake, wears on you. Doug, maybe you can elaborate on that.
No, I mean, that's it. I mean, there's not many DOs, Coach Burton used to call them. There's not many designated outs in the lineup of an SEC team. I mean, you might have one. And that guy is really just a DO because he may not be swinging it well at the moment. But normally in a non-conference, on a non-conference lineup, you'll have several guys who are, easier to get out than others. So, I think that's the biggest difference is there's just more quality hitters up and down through the lineup. And, of course, more guys that can hit home runs as well.
With 25 years of experience, Lake Urgent Care is dedicated to providing quality care close to home. They treat minor illnesses and injuries for ages 3 months and up at 17 convenient locations in Baton Rouge, Hammond, and also in Livingston and Ascension parishes. Plus, they offer patient health and weight loss solutions at a seamless extension of Our Lady of the Lake. Patients can access care anywhere from the My Client Patient portal. Urgent care centers are open 7 days a week. Simply walk in, check in online, or schedule a virtual care visit at lakeurgentcare.com. I want to talk about Jared Jones here for a second with both of you guys. When you hit, 28 home runs for a team in the Southeastern Conference, you got a real target. You guys were talking about designated outs. How about the guy in the lineup that you fear the most? But they seem to have slotted him in a really cozy spot behind Derek Curiel, who spent the season on base so far, and Daniel Dickinson, who didn't have a great weekend but has had a great start to the season. Guys, you tell me, he's seeing enough fastballs and he's making the adjustments when he doesn't.
I think Dickinson behind him gives him a lot more fastballs, and the fact that Curiel's on base, and Doug can attest to this again, with Curiel on base, number one is, you've always got a shot to have a 2-run homer, but also the pitcher's distracted by Curiel because he can run. He's got a lot of speed. You got to start out the game or you start out the inning with him on base. That puts a lot more pressure, and it's a lot more, hard pitching. There's not really a breather there. And Jones, knowing that any swing could take you to a 2-run homer, I think the fact that Curiel's always on base is really big, and Dickinson can hit a homer behind him.
Yeah, and I think Jones, I think the key is to be patient. Like when I look at the stat sheets before games, and I'm looking at the other team's hitters, one of the things I look at first is how many walks do they have compared to strikeouts, because when that number is bigger with more walks than strikeouts, that guy can hit. That guy can really swing it. He's going to be tough to strike out. And Jared Jones, I don't have his numbers, and I could actually probably find that pretty quick.
I got him, Doug. He's walked 15 times. He's got 27 hits, and he has only got 8 strikeouts on the season.
So I'm looking at that, but I was more going to say compared to his freshman year. I can't imagine that wasn't directly opposite 8 walks and 15 strikeouts, if not more, right? Meaning the ratio. Yeah. So he's done an incredible job of being patient and waiting for it to show up on his thighs. He's aware that he's going to get pitched around early in counts. He's not chasing a whole lot at all. And then when I look at the top of this lineup, or at least the top 3 guys in terms of their batting average, you've got Jones with 15 walks and 8 strikeouts. Curiel has 21 walks and 11 strikeouts. And Stephen Milam, 8 walks and only 2 strikeouts. I mean, go back and look at Todd Walker and some of the greatest of all time to play here, and look at those specific things compared to each other, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Average tells you a lot, of course, doubles, hits, all those things, on base percentage. But if a guy's able to walk more than he strikes out, that's a big indicator.
Doug, as a freshman, Jared Jones walked 36 times, struck out 69 times. So you're right. You're right on the number there.
Yep.
Where he and that was for a guy. You have a good point about batting average. He hit 304. He hit 14 homers and 160 at bats, which late in the season he didn't play as much in that national championship run. But if you average that out over 250 at bats, a full-time player over a full season, he probably would have hit over 20 homers that year. But the strikeouts took him out of the lineup late, and he's really fixed that.
Well, and you know what? That's one of the first indicators I had that told me that Jay Johnson was going to be good for LSU because, he had Jones, and Jones was obviously his freshman year hitting a bunch of homers. I think he ended up with 14. But when he saw that the league figured it out and they were spinning him to death, he set him. And that's every coach wouldn't do that. Not with a guy that's already hit 14 home runs on the year. But Jay saw the trend. He saw that they had his number, and he pulled him. And to Jared Jones's credit, he stayed positive. He kept working, and he came back last year with 28 home runs. Another great. He did great with striking out compared to walks last year. But this year, it's a whole different level. He's turned himself into not just a power hitter. Jared Jones is actually a pretty dang good all-around hitter.
Cano, anything to add on Jones?
I just one thing you can add is also, Doug, if he gets walked, Charlie and Doug, he's a good enough athlete where he doesn't clog up your bases. And, we know like big guys talking, like I said, talking to Eddie Furnace this weekend, he had a tendency to clog up the bases, admittedly so by Eddie, but Jones doesn't clog them up.
Eddie was usually jogging around the bases, so it didn't really matter that much.
Yeah. They've actually started him as a runner at least twice that I can remember.
This guy is second on the team in stolen base attempts with four stolen base attempts on the year.
Yeah.
Jake Brown has 5, and by the way, Jared Jones is 3 for 4 in those stolen base attempts as well. So he can move for a big guy, but he has absolutely worked his tail off to become like I said, a complete hitter. And by the way, he plays a pretty darn good first base too.
I agree. I think he's really improved over there. I mean, we saw some stretches. The first start that Tanner Reeves had, he threw 2 balls that were pretty wide that that Jones laid out for. One of them they had to review to go back and make the call for the out. So I agree with all those things. Guys, going into the season, Stephen Milam at shortstop, a lot of people were questioning, hey, does he have the range and does he have the arm strength to make the move over from second base? You guys thought, Dan, start with you about how he's been in the field.
He's been outstanding, and one of the things he does to make up for maybe that not the cannon arm that a lot of the big leaguers have, he attacks every ball, much like Alex Bregman. He charges the ball, he cuts down the angles, he shortens the throw, and he gets rid of the ball quick. So, you're not getting judged in the infield on the radar score across the infield. You're getting judged on, do you get the ball there before the runner gets there? And he makes up for his lack of a power arm with the ability, like I say, to attack the ball and get rid of it quick to get the runners out.
He's made one error. He's made 1 error in 17 games. I mean, at shortstop, the guy's on pace to make 3 errors in the regular season. So another testament, though, to Jay Johnson. Being the head coach isn't always that easy. Even at LSU, when you have a bunch of great players, sometimes you have to make tough decisions, like moving a kid that's been a shortstop in the SEC for 3 years and been pretty good, by the way, the whole time at South Carolina and, of course, last year LSU. And for Jay to make that decision, again, another strong coaching move. Probably, I would imagine the staff was probably split in the middle for half the time, and I think that move definitely paid off. Milam's played great at short, and I love seeing Braswell over at third base. He makes things look very easy. He's got serious range to his left, comparatively speaking, to a traditional third baseman. So. And just kind of, since we're talking about Braswell, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for this team that Tanner Reeves and Braswell are going back and forth. In fact, I hope that, I know Jay doesn't like to use the word competition, but I hope this works like this all year, because both players are going to be given, every shot that they get is going to be a big moment for them. And we'll see who can step up and take the reins and if anyone ever does over there at the hot corner. But I feel like that's the last position that we're not really quite well. That and maybe catcher that we're not crystal clear on who's going to end up there for the majority of the time.
Brought to you by Dana Brown, the law offices of O.C. Brown. Dana and his team have carried on his father O.C.'s legacy for over 30 years. So if you've been in a car accident or if you need other legal assistance, the law offices of O.C. Brown can be your first and only call. Your law firm for a lifetime. We've used them numerous times over the years for various different legal issues that we've had. The first consultation is always free. Call them at 225-343-1111 or on the web at OSSIEBrown.com. Guys, as we wrap up here, the conference season starts this weekend. They're into one game during the week instead of, they've had two in a few of these non-conference weeks. So what's the strategy? What are we looking at as far as pitching in the middle of the week? Because guys like Cowan, William Schmidt, and of course Case and Evans, you're going to want to limit. You want to get them some work, but not too much work, if that makes any sense. And how Jay may approach the 1 game weeks and guys that he needs to get in there to get some time.
The guys who would pitch tonight for me would be the ones that, and I don't know who these people are for Jay. I'm just saying if I were the coach of this team, the 3 or 4 guys I'd run out there tonight are the 3 or 4 I'm still not quite sure of the position or the situation I want to bring them in. And it would kind of be that last final tryout, maybe to whittle the last 4 guys in my mind down to 3. But that would just be the way I would go at it.
I think you're right there, Doug. And I think the other thing you got to factor in, I don't think anybody will go over 2 innings because it's basically a Johnny All-Staff game. Everybody's getting a live bullpen action against Xavier. And like you said, we got to find some answers going into the weekend. He kind of may set up with what he's got as relievers. So this is an educational game for Jay on Tuesday night, I think, with pitching staff.
I agree.
Dan, I'm going to do this, and I promise it's the last time I'm going to say these 3 letters until May, okay? Oh. RPI, okay?
Oh, gosh, Charlie, I hate that.
I know you hate the RPI. I promise not to bring it up again until May. Xavier is the number 2 RPI team in the country, okay? The early numbers are a little bit skewed, right? You understand.
A little bit.
Right. I think that's not going to hold when they get into conference play. I think it's going to kind of change.
I think you're probably right. I promise no more RPI stuff until May. Hey, Doug, we're delighted to have you as a part of our podcast now. And your work with the Louisiana Firefighters Foundation and the first responders, some really important stuff for our community here. And I know you're happy to be a part of their organization.
Love working with the Louisiana Firefighters Foundation. Every day we're looking for ways to improve Louisiana firefighters' lives, both at home and at work. And of course, we also offer training to the community. Last year, we went to around 50 schools. And when we go to schools, we teach teachers, not students, how to stop a bleed, how to properly use an AED, and then CPR. And we do that with a pretty unmatchable service. We use current and former Louisiana firefighters. And when you're talking about people to teach CPR and how to stop a bleed, no one really does that more so than firefighters do. So we use real professionals with real life experience to go in and teach life-saving skills. And we leave behind life-saving products like bleed control kits and AEDs when we do that. So totally servicing the entire state of Louisiana. Our firefighters are paid lower than any other state, and they need our support. So anyone that would consider becoming a public member of the foundation, it's $100 a year. You can go to laughmembers.com and show your support.
All right, everybody. Xavier tomorrow night at the box, and then 3 games with Missouri here in Baton Rouge to open up the SEC season. We'll be back next Monday with the Hannycast. For Dan Cannaveri, for Doug Thompson, I'm Charles Hannigrove. This has been the Hannycast.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Appreciate it.
See you next time, boys.
Okay.
All right. And the homecoming for Carrick Jackson. Former Southern head coach.
Yeah, I'd forgotten he was up there. Now they played 4 games with. They split 4 games at Stanford, and then they played Vandy 3 times and Tennessee once. Lost all 4 of those games, so they're not. they've seen a little competition here early. But anyway, everything else cool, Dan? Anything else I need
I'm
to?
good. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Very good. We'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.